This program is brought to you by SMC Infrastructure, building a better world.
Ang sarili laban sa coronavirus disease o COVID-19.
Narito ang ilang paalala.
Takpan ang ilong at bibig sa tuwing babahing at uubo. Gamitin ang looban ng siko. Kung gagamit naman ng tissue, ay tiyaking maitapon ito agad sa tamang basurahan. Iwasang hawakan ang ilong o bibig. Ugaliing maghugas ng mga kamay gamit ang sabon at umaagos na tubig o magpahid ng alcohol-based sanitizer.
Gumamit ng face mask kung ikaw ay may ubot sipon o kaya naman ay may inaalaga ang pasyente na mayroong simptomas ng respiratory illness. Itapon ng gamit na face mask sa tamang basurahan.
Sundin ang social distancing. Panatilihin ang 1 metrong layo mula sa ibang tao, lalo na kapag nasa labas ng bahay. Kung maaari ay umiwas muna sa mga matataong lugar.
Laging tandaan, mahalaga ang kalinisan upang sakit ay maiwasan.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. We're moving to the next stage of the pandemic, and as the world resets to the new normal, we find ourselves seeking the right balance between health and livelihood, constantly adjusting the boundaries between liberty and responsibility. On tonight's headlines. Thousands of people fled their homes in Northern California as hundreds of fast-moving wildfires spread across the region. Senator Kamala Harris makes history by accepting the Democratic nomination for Vice President while joining Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton to condemn President Donald Trump's profound failure as a leader. And Apple becomes the first U.S. company to reach $2 trillion in market value in the latest demonstration of how tech giants have benefited from the upheaval of the coronavirus. And beyond batteries, scientists built methanol-powered BeetleBot. Thousands of people fled their homes in Northern California as hundreds of fast-moving wildfires spread across the region, burning houses and leading to the death of a helicopter pilot. Governor Gavin Newsom, who has declared a state of emergency to facilitate the release of emergency funds, said the wildfires had been caused by thousands of lightning strikes in recent days in the Bay Area. Take a look.
Stating the obvious that the west coast of the United States continues to experience a massive heat wave. Some have described this high-pressure system as a heat dome that has impacted not just the state of California, but the entire west coast of the United States. It has led to many red flag warnings, including a significant number of lightning strikes in the last 72 hours, some 10,849 lightning strikes alone just in the last number of days, including 130-degree temperatures here in the state of California, 130-degree temperature here in the state of California, the highest recorded certainly in modern history, potentially in human history, in Death Valley. We have seen wildfire activity as a consequence of this heat wave, as a consequence of all of these lightning strikes. We currently have active, addressed some 6,754 fires since the beginning of this year. You contrast that, and you can see in this slide where we were this time last year. Rather than over 6,700 fires that we've had to battle this year, we are now battling, or rather by contrast, we battled just over 4,000 fires last year. So this fire season has been very active. And not surprisingly, that activity has taken shape in a number of counties up and down the state of California. We declared a statewide emergency yesterday, which fundamentally helps us avail ourselves of resources to combat these fires, both within the state. Currently, we are battling some 367 known fires that are burning statewide. And I say known fires because when you see this amount of lightning strikes, and by the way, it was June of 2008 where we had roughly half the number of lightning strikes. June 2008 is a memorable date here in the state of California, particularly here at the State Operations Center, and the work CAL FIRE had to do to address those lightning strikes. Roughly half, 5,146 lightning strikes marked on that date, compared to over 10,000 over the last few days here in the state. As those lightning strikes spark, as you have a lot of smoke, difficult time determining total number of fires until certain things clear and we have the opportunity to go to more remote parts of the state. So I say 367 known fires based on the lightning activity, but the prospect of that number going up is very real. But the number that is most impactful, at least at the moment, are the 23 major fires and what we describe as together but concentrated and spaced apart, but within a geographic geographic area that is proximate. And so 23 major fires that we are currently addressing aggressively through all our efforts, both the local, regional, and state and federal level.
Here, completely black, burning all over. People coming in, the police, the fire department coming in from towns like Napa, St. Helena, Vallejo, Elk Grove, Woodland. I live up this hill right here, and it was Pleasance Valley Parkway and Mount Vaca right here that totally engulfed in flames. And I was terrified. My father's completely, I don't know. This is the worst year ever. 2020, terrible. Garbage.
Well, we got woke up about 2:30, banging on the doors and saying, grab your kit and evacuate.
Now, she was right. Many were awakened by neighbors or firefighters desperately banging on their doors and rushed out dressed only in their pajamas. Several suffered burns as they ran for their lives. In Vacaville, a city of about 100,000 people located between the state capital Sacramento and San Francisco, residents were urged to evacuate during the night as the wind-whipped flames swallowed dozens of homes. Evacuation orders or warnings were also issued in other countries, including the wine regions of Sonoma and Napa, where fires sparked by lightning are raging unchecked amid a sweltering heat wave. CAL FIRE officials, meanwhile, said the series of fires in that region, dubbed the LNU Lightning Complex, had destroyed 50 homes to burn through nearly 50,000 acres and were 0% contained by early Wednesday evening. They added that a helicopter pilot taking part in the firefighting efforts in Fresno County, southeast of San Francisco, had died in a crash as he was attempting to drop water. In Santa Cruz, meanwhile, and San Mateo counties, a series of fires called the CZU Lightning Complex forced the shutdown of portions of the iconic Coastal Highway 1 as flames came close to the road. Meanwhile, China has touted its massive dam network as a remedy for its devastating annual floods. But record deluges have once again killed hundreds of people and submerged thousands of homes this year. Millions of people have been affected this time, with hundreds of thousands of evacuated roads submerged, tourist sites closed, and soaring economic costs. From June to early August, around 50 or 30 billion cubic meters of floodwater were intercepted by dams and reservoirs in Asia's longest river, the Yangtze, mitigating flooding downstream in areas including Shanghai, China's emergency management ministry said. But the country's vast infrastructure has been unable to contain all the flooding, with authorities in the eastern city of Chuzhou, Anhui province, forced to blow up 2 dams last month to release water from the rising Chu River over cropland, according to state broadcaster CCTV. And fears re-emerge periodically over the structural integrity of the Three Gorges Dam on the Upper Yangtze, the world's largest hydroelectric dam, built in an area crisscrossed by geological fault lines. Now, the burden on China's dams is likely to grow as climate change makes extreme weather events more common. As the Earth's atmosphere gets warmer, it holds more moisture, making downpours more intense, according to Benjamin Horton, director of the Earth Observatory of Singapore. Water levels reached historic highs in 53 rivers this summer, according to China's Ministry of Water Resources. Authorities also warned this week that the Three Gorges Dam is facing the largest flood peak since it began operating in 2003. Heavy rains are set to send 74,000 cubic meters of water per second rushing into the Three Gorges Reservoir. To other news now, President Donald Trump called arrested Hong Kong media mogul Jimmy Lai a brave man and expressed his support for the pro-democracy advocate who was briefly detained last week. Take a look.
For his release.
Well, I send him best wishes. I hear he's a wonderful gentleman. He's certainly a brave man, and I send him best wishes. With that being said, because of that and obviously what happened in Hong Kong, we've taken all of the vast amounts of money that we used to subsidize Hong Kong. We essentially subsidized Hong Kong by giving them all sorts of incentives, and that's what made Hong Kong, the exchange and business in Hong Kong successful.
Staff and handed on income from shipping. Washington's move came in response to the imposition by China of a national security law in Hong Kong that critics say is an attack on freedoms in the semi-autonomous Chinese city. But a Hong Kong government spokesperson said abandoning the deals created further troubles in the China-U.S. relationship, using Hong Kong as a pawn and should be condemned by the international community. He said the decision reflects a disrespect for bilateralism and multilateralism under the administration of U.S. President Donald Trump. Beijing also criticized the wrong actions of the U.S., saying China has decided Hong Kong would suspend its agreement with the U.S. on mutual legal assistance in criminal matters. Senator Kamala Harris made history when she accepted the Democratic nomination for vice president, while joining Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton to condemn President Trump's profound failure as a leader. Harris, the first black woman on a major party's White House ticket, accused Trump of turning our tragedies into political weapons, and she urged Americans to vote for Joe Biden. Take a look.
Donald Trump's failure of leadership has cost lives and livelihoods. If you're a parent struggling with your child's remote learning, or you're a teacher struggling on the other side of that screen, you know what we're doing right now is not working. So make no mistake, the road ahead is not easy. We may stumble. We may fall short. But I pledge to you that we will act boldly and deal with our challenges honestly. We will speak truths, and we will act with the same faith in you that we ask you to place in us.
Harris has repeatedly stressed she puts family first, and for her, the woman whose shoulder she stands on is her late mother, Shyamala, a highly respected cancer researcher who emigrated from India. Shyamala met her future husband Harris's Jamaican-born father while demonstrating for civil rights on the streets of Berkeley, California. Take a look.
And oh, how I wish she were here tonight. But I keep thinking about that 25-year-old Indian woman, all of 5 feet tall, who gave birth to me at Kaiser Hospital in Oakland, California. On that day, she probably could have never imagined that I would be standing before you now and speaking these words. I accept your nomination for Vice President of the United States of America.
Earlier, former President Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton attacked President Trump as a failure on the third night of the all-online Democratic Convention. Take a look.
Donald Trump hasn't grown into the job because he can't. And the consequences of that failure are severe. 170,000 Americans dead. Millions of jobs gone, while those at the top take in more than ever. Our worst impulses unleashed, our proud reputation around the world badly diminished, and our democratic institutions threatened like never before.
And don't forget, Joe and Kamala can win by 3 million votes and still lose. Take it from me. So we need numbers overwhelming so Trump can't sneak or steal his way to victory. Remember back in 2016 when Trump asked, "What do you have to lose?" Well, now we know. Our health care, our jobs, our loved ones, our leadership in the world, and even our post office. But let's set our sights higher than getting one man out of the White House. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are going to give us so much to vote for. As Michelle Obama and Bernie Sanders warned us, if Trump is reelected, things will get even worse.
I have sat in the Oval Office with both of the men who are running for president. I never expected that my successor would embrace my vision or continue my policies. I did hope, for the sake of our country, that Donald Trump might show some interest in taking the job seriously, that he might come to feel the weight of the office and discover some reverence for the democracy that had been placed in his care. But he never did.
If he had put his own interests and ego aside, seen the humanity in a child ripped from her parents at the border, or a protester calling for justice, or a family wiped out by natural disaster, that would have been a good thing for America and the world. I wish Donald Trump knew how to be a president, because America needs a president right now.
Meanwhile, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi and Senator Elizabeth Warren condemned President Trump's incompetence, disrespect at the Democratic Convention. Take a look.
In this fight, so that when our children and our grandchildren ask what we did during this dark chapter in our nation's history, we will be able to look them squarely in the eye and say, we organized, we persisted, and we changed America.
Instead of crushing the virus, they're trying to crush the Affordable Care Act and its pre-existing conditions benefit. As Speaker of the House, I've seen firsthand Donald Trump's disrespect for facts, for working families, and for women in particular. Disrespect written into his policies toward our health and our rights, not just his conduct. But we know what he doesn't, that when women succeed, America succeeds.
Meanwhile, White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany says the administration is certainly open to the Democrats' demand for funding the U.S. Postal Service, but she has branded Speaker Nancy Pelosi as reckless for not agreeing to the next stimulus package before Congress went on recess. Let's listen in.
Hello, everyone. Where is Nancy Pelosi? The House is in recess. House and Senate Democrats left town after failing to compromise and make a deal to provide relief to the American people. While Nancy Pelosi and her colleagues went home, this president remained hard at work. President Trump took executive action, including stopping evictions, providing unemployment insurance, pausing student loan payments, cutting the payroll tax, which put money in the pockets of all Americans. Democrats apparently were unable to stick around to make a deal. Now, suddenly, Democrats will be rushing back to Washington. But why? The answer? The United States Postal Service. It's a stunning turn of events. Democrats went home after accomplishing nothing. No deal on stimulus checks, no deal on small business relief, no deal on eviction protections. The concerns of everyday Americans were not the concerns of Democrats on Capitol Hill. So where is Nancy Pelosi? She and her Democrat colleagues will be back in Washington soon to pursue their latest manufactured crisis, the Postal Service. Democrats denied a $10 billion offer for the U.S. Postal Service by this president before they went on recess. But now they're back to pursue the latest Democrat manufactured crisis. It's sad, but it's clear where Democrats' priorities stand. And with that, I'll take questions.
Now, the briefing also covered a number of topics revolving around the president's push to limit postal service funding that is part of Democrats' $3 trillion stimulus package, the HEROES Act. Now, in that act, $25 billion is allocated to the Postal Service as emergency funding. Republicans have put forward a $1 trillion bill and have negotiated with Democrats prior to the congressional recess, but neither side could come to an agreement. In other news, the Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny was in intensive care in a Siberian hospital after he fell ill in what his spokeswoman said was a suspected poisoning. Navalny, a 44-year-old lawyer and anti-corruption campaigner who is among President Putin's fiercest critics, was being treated in a hospital in the city of Omsk after he lost consciousness on a flight to Moscow and his plane made an emergency landing. His spokeswoman, Kira Yarmish, wrote on Twitter that Navalny had been placed in a coma on a ventilator and that tests were being carried out. On Thursday morning, Navalny was on his way from Tomsk back to Moscow when he suddenly felt unwell mid-flight. Yarmish wrote in a series of tweets on Thursday, his plane has urgently landed in Omsk and he has toxic poisoning, she tweeted. In a post in RT News, however, it said that, quote, she recalled an incident last year when Navalny suffered a severe allergic reaction while serving a prison sentence for staging an unsanctioned rally in Moscow. At the time, he was diagnosed with contact dermatitis, but his team again insisted that it was a poisoning by an unknown chemical substance. The samples were examined at the well-known Sklifoskovsky Institute, where doctors found no traces of poison, unquote. All right, and Australia joined the Rimpac 2020 exercises in Hawaii. Joining us live from Australia, here's Mia Makapagad. Hello, Mia.
Good evening, Alma.
Good evening, Mia. Go ahead.
Yes, so Exercise Rim of the Pacific 2020, commonly known as Rimpac, is a biennial event that gathers various nations throughout the globe in exercising their military capabilities. The Rimpac exercise began its succession in 1971 and has successfully been held every 2 years, Rimpac 2020 being the 27th exercise of the series. This large-scale maritime warfare practice will exhibit the development of maritime trust among the participating militaries. This year's theme of Capable Adaptive Partners aims to build and strengthen partnerships and enrich the interoperability within these forces. Rimpac 2020 is gathering 10 various nations in the island state of Hawaii. This year, it is anticipated to involve a submarine, aircrafts, ships, and over 5,000 personnel. The Australian Government Department of Defence has published an insight on Australia's involvement in this constructive event. Rimpac holds historical significance as the nation embarked its participation in the first Rimpac in 1971. Consecutively, Australia's involvement has evidently benefited the Australian Defence Force, or ADF. With almost 700 ADF personnel and 400 Royal Australian Navy vessels involved in Rimpac 2020, Australia demonstrates its immersion and commitment in the exercise of their defence warfare. Their involvement this year will enable the ADF to test their military strength and capability through the conduction of missile firing events, warfare exercises, as well as other training events. The 4 Royal Australian Navy vessels that are involved in this year's Rimpac include the ships of Hobart, Stuart, Arunta, and Sirius. These HMA ships have begun their journey in preparation of their involvement. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected the conduction of Rimpac this year. Consequently, will be limited to on-sea only exercises. This will ensure the safety of all participants and mitigate the effect of the pandemic. Though a modification in this year's program, the adaptive plan intends to exercise maximum training while considering the risks of those involved as well as the people of Hawaii. Back to you, Alma.
All right, thank you very much for your updates there. You stay safe, stay healthy, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Alma. From Brisbane, Australia, this is Mia Makbagal, Eagle News, and we live in interesting times.
Thank you, Mia. Eagle News will be right back.
To date, SMC infrastructure remains at the forefront of Boracay Airport's modernization. The current and long-term developments include the construction of an international airport passenger terminal and the extension of the existing runway to better serve bigger aircrafts, providing tourists with world-class access to this slice of paradise.
Welcome back. Global stock markets were mixed on Wednesday, with Wall Street indices retreating from records, even as Apple became the first U.S. company to reach $2 trillion in market value. After an up day for European equity bourses, U.S. stocks appeared headed for another positive session before sliding into the red after Federal Reserve meeting minutes highlighted the weakness of the American economy. The minutes emphasized how the U.S. economic direction was tied to the coronavirus, which remains largely untamed in the world's biggest economy, suggesting the need for more stimulus. Apple became the first U.S. company to reach $2 trillion in market value in the latest demonstration of how tech giants have benefited from the upheaval of the coronavirus. Apple's rise comes amid a broader rally in technology shares as employees around the country shift to working at home amid the coronavirus pandemic and social distancing protocols. Australian flag carrier Qantas on Thursday posted an almost $2 billion annual loss after a near total collapse in demand due to the coronavirus pandemic. Take a look. Strict restrictions on travel to Australia and a near blanket ban on citizens leaving spelled a statutory pre-tax loss of 2.7 billion Australian dollars, including the cost of mothballing its Airbus A380s and huge redundancy payouts. Revenues collapsed 82% between April and June. Facing the most challenging period in its 99-year history, Qantas said it would move ahead with retrenching 6,000 staff and has grounded 100 planes for up to a year in a $10 billion cost-cutting blitz. The airline reported a strong first half of the year, followed by a near total collapse in travel demand as virus restrictions were introduced. We were on track for another profit above 1 billion Australian dollars when this crisis struck, according to CEO Alan Joyce. The global aviation industry is facing perhaps its biggest crisis to date, with numerous big-name carriers seeking billions of dollars to stop them from going under, while others have gone out of business. In Australia, the sector has received hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayer funds as the government scrambled to save it from collapse. Joyce said the industry's recovery will take time and it will be choppy. In other news, the Philippines and the United Kingdom have renewed their commitments to boost trade and investments amid the coronavirus disease pandemic following the second economic dialogue held between the two governments on Wednesday. In a joint statement, both states committed to support the global health response and efforts towards an inclusive, green, and sustainable economic recovery. Department of Trade and Industry Undersecretary Seferino Rodolfo said the Philippines is a key economic partner and ally of the UK in ASEAN. Engaging the UK bilaterally is strategically important at this crucial time as they implement their independent trade regime and as we ramp up international cooperation towards recovery from the effects of the pandemic. The economic dialogue with the UK is the country's first bilateral meet outside ASEAN since the onset of the coronavirus. The economic dialogue also marks the 75 years of bilateral relations between the Philippines and the UK in 2021. British Ambassador to the Philippines, Daniel Prue, said, "We move a step closer to 75 years of Philippine-UK friendship, and we look forward to an even stronger collaboration between our nations, working together to shape the UK's dynamic partnership with ASEAN and the wider region." Mr. Prue, Ambassador Prue, added that despite the COVID-19 pandemic, the two countries will continue to pursue closer ties for an inclusive, green, and sustainable economic recovery. Unregulated, aggressive promotion of formula milk, poor medical advice, a short maternity leave, and workplaces hostile to nursing mothers mean China has among the lowest breastfeeding rates in the world. Take a look.
当有这么一个信念的时候，其实是有无数的阻碍的，随时随地会遇到。近的话是家人的，母亲啊，比如说婆婆啊，而且在最困难的时候，其实是刚生下孩子很疲惫，这段时间，然后所有的矛盾啊，或者说甚至周围的人，主要是亲近的人嘛，觉得你给他喝奶粉就好了，多简单，多轻松啊。来，因为他还小嘛。我的，对对，他想你嘛，他不是逗你，他是想你。对。就第一个应该是全面的健康，独立人格上的、思想心理的。第二个是身体的，在喂养上没有任何的担忧、顾虑，母乳可以解决所有的问题，就不用担忧。第三个就是我跟孩子的亲密感，然后我非常的亲密，我不用担心他疏离我。这3点。挤奶器是很难受的，手挤是很好的，就是我都是手挤奶的。他们居然把我给忘了。
A massive pool party attended by thousands of people at the epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic showed how well China had dealt with the disease. That is according to authorities. They insisted this despite images from the event, prompting outrage around the world. Take a look. Now, pictures and video of the weekend electronic music party in Wuhan, where COVID-19 first emerged in December of 2019, have gone viral, attracting a huge negative response in places where lockdowns are still in effect. The headline, "Life's a Beach in Wuhan as World Pays Virus Prize," splashed across the front page of Australia's Daily Telegraph, was typical of some mainstream news headlines, while comments on social media sites were more colorfully frank. China's nationalist Global Times newspaper hit back against what it called sour grapes abroad. AFP's video of the event has been viewed more than 16 million times since it was posted. But China said the pool party showed the city's strategic victory against the outbreak and said the images were proof that the country's approach to controlling the virus had been successful. To the latest coronavirus numbers now, the pandemic has killed at least 788,030 people worldwide since surfacing in China late last year, according to a tally from Johns Hopkins University. Now, more than 22 million cases have been registered, 22,427,939. Now, the United States has recorded the most deaths with 173,193, followed by Brazil with 111,100, Mexico with 57,774, and India with 52,889, and the United Kingdom with 41,381. And Iran's novel coronavirus death toll has surpassed 20,000, according to the government on Wednesday, 6 months after announcing the start of what quickly became the Middle East's deadliest outbreak. The health ministry said COVID-19 claimed 153 more lives in the past 24 hours, bringing the country's overall toll to 20,125 dead. Authorities have not imposed a mandatory lockdown on the population across Iran. Schools were shut, public events canceled, and travel between provinces banned in March. Restrictions were gradually lifted in April as the coronavirus pandemic exacerbated a sharp downturn for Iran's sanctions-hit economy. But deaths and infections have risen in the Islamic Republic since hitting a months-long low in May, leading to a re-imposition of some protocols. Meanwhile, Malacanang on Thursday appealed to nurses' sense of nationalism to convince them to stay while the country is facing a state of public health emergency amid the prevailing coronavirus disease pandemic. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque made this statement after Filipino Nurses United sought for the lifting of the deployment ban on healthcare workers, as many of them remain unemployed. Mr. Roque said the government is already providing healthcare workers additional benefits. Take a look.
Housing at well, unang-una po, no, naitaas na po natin ang sahod ng mga nurses sa mga gobyernong hospital, no? Na nabigay na po sa kanila kung ano yung hinihingi nila na adjustment sa salary standardization law. At ang problema nga po natin ngayon, malaki yung diferensya sa sweldo ng mga government nurses na tinaas na at saka yung mga private nurses. No? Pero ganun pa man, sa ilalim po ng Bayanihan 2, hiningi po ng Administrasyon Duterte na magbigay po ng parang hazard allowance sa lahat po ng mga nurses, lalong-lalo na sa mga pribadong sektor kung saan mas mababa ang kanilang mga sahod. At nagbibigay po tayo ngayon ng iba pang incentives, gaya ng free housing at saka free testing. No? So sa tingin ko po, sa panahon ng pandemya, mananaig naman po ang nasyonalismo sa puso at damdamin ng ating mga nurses.
Harry Roque has mentioned, no? Doon po sa ating po sa Bayanihan, makikita po dyan sa section na yan na pati po private healthcare workers ay bibigyan na po ng benepisyo galing po sa ating national government. And even yung mga hazard pay, yung mga special risk allowance, kasama na po dyan sa ating binalangkas dyan po sa sinubmit natin sa ating BICAM. No? So sana po, again, ako rin po, katulad ni Secretary Harry Roque, nakikiusap po kami sa ating mga healthcare workers na sana yung nationalism natin ay manaig sa panahon ngayon na meron tayong pandemya para makatulong po tayo sa gobyerno.
Ang sumatotal dyan kahit pa mga ibang bansa ang ating mga health workers, may iiwang silang mga mahal sa buhay dito. At sana po yun ang maisip din ng mga health professionals na kung wala namang mag-a-attend sa kanilang mga pamilya dito pag kailangan ng mga health workers, dun po sana manaig sa kanilang mga damdamin.
Tuesday, the IATF released resolution number 64, temporarily suspending the deployment of medical professionals. The resolution also urged the Department of Health and government hospitals to hire healthcare workers to augment the workforce. Earlier this month, Malacanang announced plans to hire 10,000 healthcare workers to boost the workforce. Eagle News will be right back.
Hello, my name is Robin, and I'm 5 years old. My mom and dad said many people are getting sick. That is why we have to stay at home. That is why I cannot go to school. I cannot play outside, and I cannot even visit my friends. We can only go outside if we visit the doctor, or if we need to buy some food. And when we get home, we have to wash our hands. While I'm at home, I do my homework, clean up my toys, help cooking our food, and help my parents with their work. Please stay home so we can all play together again. Bye!
Tayong mga Filipino, likas na palabati. Sanay rin tayong makipagkamay. Pero dahil na rin sa COVID pandemic, isinusulong ang pagbati na hindi na kailangan pang makipagkamay. Ang pambansang pagbati. Ito ay ang pagdampi ng kanang palad sa gitnang bahagi ng dibdib, kasabay ng bahagyang pagyukod ng ulo o paibabang tingin at pagsambit ng mga salitang nagpapahayag ng pagbati, paggalang o pagpupugay. Pagkatapos nito ay ang pag-angat ng ulo ng nakangiti at nakatingin sa mata ng binabati. Pambansang pagbati, pagpapakita ng paggalang, kababaang loob at pagiging sensero nating mga Filipino.
The search for the best continues. Tagisan ng Galing Part 2 is now accepting audition entries. Kung ikaw ay 21 to 59 years old at may angking galing sa pagkanta, mapa-solo, duet, trio o banda man, magpadala na ng audition entry. Narito ang mga guidelines. Para makapagpasa ng entry sa singing category, contact Nikki sa 0977-651-9504. Ito na ang pagkakataon mo para maging tagisan ng galing grand winner at manalo ng 2 million pesos. Para sa karagdagang impormasyon, i-like ang Tagisan ng Galing Facebook page. Kaya sali na!
A robot beetle goes the distance on its own thanks to a methanol-fueled micro-muscle. Scientists envision that swarms of robotic insects could assist search and rescue operations. But tight spaces are out of reach for robots that must be tethered to an energy source. The new bot, described in Science Robotics, carries its liquid fuel inside its body. To turn methanol into motion, the researchers quoted a nickel-titanium alloy wire with platinum. Now the alloy contracts like a muscle when heated and extends once cooled. The platinum generates heat by combusting any methanol vapor that comes into contact with it. And by varying the exposure to fuel in a periodic pattern, the temperature varies and the micro-muscle accordions. That motion causes the bot's forelegs to rear up. When the legs scooch back again, the body drags forward. Now, in the future, the row beetle as it's called, could carry a load of up to 2.6 times its own weight on its back and run for 2 hours on a full tank. In the future, microbots may be used for a variety of applications, like infrastructure inspection or search and rescue missions after natural disasters. They might also assist in tasks like artificial pollination or environmental monitoring. And before we close, we leave you with a word of hope. At the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. See you again tomorrow evening. Good night. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.